We're over here on East 12th behind the BK, where we're just getting together after a meeting, holding up here for our celebration of the village, respecting, repping the town. But there's another heavy hitter here, my sister Nell. She's on with the Poor People's Campaign. That's another aspect of this struggle, this fighting not just houselessness, but inhumanities, of the power structures. And give us a little more insight into what Poor People's Campaign actually is.
Well, the Poor People's Campaign is a national call for moral revival because we feel like it's needed to save the soul of the country because we're living in the richest country in the world, but the reality is that there are 140 million people with no income to low income in this country. And I think that's probably an undercount because, they don't really want us to know how many of us are really affected by the policies. And so the Poor People's Campaign is a revival of the 1968 campaign that was started by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. before he was assassinated. And he was fighting against militarism, systemic racism, and poverty. And so we picked up those three issues and added environmental devastation and addressing the distorted moral narrative because the people who claim to be moral in this country don't seem to care anything about homelessness. They don't care about people who are uninsured. They don't care about people who can't get educated. They don't, the only thing they care about is that women don't have control over their bodies and that gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people can't exist. And so we're challenging that. And also another part of the distorted moral narrative is that poor people are poor because of a personal failing. But what we know is that the policies that have been created over time are what makes the people poor. And so we're challenging those policies and challenging the myth that people are poor because of individual personal reasons.
That's what's up. All right, and I hear that's good. That's good roots that you actually started around the time before when the civil rights struggle was still strong. As you know, just before drugs decimated, the leaders of that, the black community,
right.
With three generations, of attacks, as well with the gender to the day. It's just another way of, of corralling us and keeping us separate. All right. And so how do you feel as far as coming up? What's going on for the 2020 campaign? I hear that you're taking the fight actually to Washington D.C. and
Yeah.
you're gathering thoughts and words to carry with you.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. In December, Reverend William Barber and Reverend Liz Harris, they're the co-chairs of the campaign. We're here for the MORE tour stop in California. MORE stands for mobilizing, organizing, registering, and educating a movement for people who vote, because we know that the voting is important, because if it wasn't, there wouldn't be so much voter suppression shenanigans that the Democrats and the Republicans, frankly, engage in. So we know that it's important to vote, but we also know that voting is not the whole thing, that we have to be involved in a movement, because no matter who gets elected, we have to be able to hold them accountable. And the only thing that really holds politicians accountable is when people are organized. And so the MORE tour is stopping in 22 states across the country. And part of the goal of that tour is to build momentum toward a mass assembly and a march on Washington happening June 20th, 2020. And so that's what we're getting ready for. We're going to be organizing here in the Bay Area to bring as many people as we can from California. And the Poor People's Campaign is active in 40 states across the country. So we expect to have contingents from every one of those 40 states. And maybe we'll add some more between now and then.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Nell. And as far as going forward, is there any links, anything you want us to look out for?
Well, you can always find the Poor People's Campaign on the internet at www.poorpeoplescampaign.org. And the Bay Area supporters have a Facebook page that you can Google us and find the Bay Area Poor People's Campaign. And then we have regular meetings. We'll have a meeting coming up on January 11th from 3 to 5. So you can be in touch